What it is, Daniacs. I am a non-Abrahamic true monotheist. I'm going to be reacting to this Solving God channel. They are comparing Jesus and Muhammad morally. Okay, but let us not forget, we can never forget that it's not just Jesus, right? It's Yahweh, because Yahweh is Jesus, right? Supposedly. So check this out. Now there are actually two different Yahwehs, okay? You have the Yahweh of the Jews, then you have the Yahweh of the Christians. And they will like to tell you that it's the same Yahweh, but it is not. It is two different versions of it, because the Christian version of Yahweh is Jesus, whereas the Jewish version of Yahweh is not Jesus. So they can't possibly be the same thing. Although Christians like to say all the time, our God is the eternal one that's always been. But these are two different versions of Yahweh, though. So anyway, we are comparing Jesus and Muhammad. But anytime you are comparing Jesus's actions, you must also compare Yahweh's actions, and you might know where I'm going with this. You might know where I'm going with this.
Who is the better moral example? In this video, we're going to highlight some of the things that Muhammad did and contrast that with Jesus. I'll also give you what a Muslim apologist might respond to Muhammad's actions, and then tell you why that just isn't biblical. Stay tuned. By the end of this video, you can decide for yourself who is the better moral example for you and your family. Here we go. Number 1. Stoned women for adultery. Now contrast that with Jesus. Jesus explicitly opposed stoning an adulterous woman, showing mercy instead of judgment. Jesus says, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." In John 8:11, he tells the woman, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Now, Muslim apologists might argue,
but yet we must also take Yahweh's actions into account, because Jesus is Yahweh, right? So let us not forget that Yahweh, Jesus, accepted the burnt virgin sacrifice of Jephthah's daughter. What did she do? She walked out the door. She was a virgin, supposedly, according to the scriptures. What was her crime? She walked out the door. So at least Muhammad waited for a bitch to be a trifling hoe before he stoned her. And if you're just going to compare the deaths themselves, you got stoning a bitch, okay, to burning a bitch alive so you can smell her roasting. All right, I don't know. So which one is morally more reprehensive? What Muhammad did, or what Yahweh did? And that's just one example from Yahweh. Just one. Let us not forget the multiple genocides, including infanticides. Happily bash their babies' heads against the rocks and all that. Okay. Never forget. Never forget. See, it's funny. Y'all like to say Jesus is Yahweh, Jesus is God, right? But then you totally leave out all of Yahweh's actions during these comparisons. That is intellectually dishonest.
that stoning was a deterrent to prevent.
Hello, Candace.
Not you again.
Me again. Remember our last oil change? Your boyfriend said he knew a guy who knew
Prevent immorality and maintain social order. However, Christians emphasize that Jesus' teachings and actions, particularly in this situation, introduced a new ethic of forgiveness and mercy.
God damn, dude. Do you fucking mind? I'm trying to record some shit, motherfuckers. Oh my fucking god. bullshit, man. Fucking cocksuckers.
Think of forgiveness and mercy over judgment, emphasizing repentance rather than punishment. Jesus' response to the adulterous woman is often seen as an example of divine mercy that transcends all legalism. Number 2, Muhammad consummated a marriage with a 9-year-old. In Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari, it records that Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 years old and consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old. Now contrast that with Jesus, who showed profound respect for children, regarding them as exemplars of faith. In Matthew chapter 18, he warned, if any...
Now contrast that with Yahweh, who told his followers to go out to the neighboring nations and kill all the men and take all the virgin girls, okay? Just saying, you got to throw Yahweh's actions in there too. And Yahweh approves of adultery. There's multiple examples in the Bible where Yahweh approves of adultery.
One causes one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. You see, his protective attitude towards children highlights his call to treat them with the utmost care and respect. Now, Muslim apologists might argue that marriage customs in Muhammad's time were different, and that the marriage to Aisha was socially acceptable and beneficial for community alliances. However, Jesus' teachings hold an eternal moral standard, calling for respect and protection for the vulnerable.
Eternal moral standard. Okay. So kind of like Yahweh breaking every single commandment that he forces on others. See, when you talk about a perfect creator would not break his own laws. A perfect creator would know that the creations will be watching, and the creations are intelligent. And if the creations see the creator breaking his own law, that diminishes the power of that law, and a perfect creator would know that. So even though a perfect creator might have the power to break their own law, they would not. They would not break their own law. Now, Yahweh, Jesus, and Allah are desert war gods of hypocrisy, not the one true creator. There are constant unbreakable laws, which are the natural laws of science, which are those are the examples of actual laws from the actual one true creator. Okay, unbreakable laws. If it's a breakable law, then that is not the fruit of the one true creator.
Especially children. His example of valuing children and maintaining a high moral integrity contrasts with the cultural customs that may condone early marriages.
Okay, and once again, talking about the children, let's go back to Yahweh, who has committed multiple infanticides. It's all right. Muslims, never forget that in your debates with Christians. I mean, all y'all are blood cult sin worshippers, but but if you're gonna fight amongst yourselves, you might as well have some good arguments.
Number 3, he ordered the removal of women from the planet. According to Ibn Ashaq 819 and 995, Muhammad sanctioned the removal of women from the planet, especially in cases related to perceived threats or insults. That's right, just perceived.
What kind of world would that be there, Muslims? I mean, I don't know a whole much about Islam, so I'm just taking this dude at his word for right now, which I've already established his words. Just because he's not practicing intellectual honesty. I'm just kind of taking him for his word on this whole thing right here, but what the fuck do you mean remove the women from the planet? What kind of world would that be? Having a bunch of dudes running around? No, man. That's not a life worth living right there.
Now contrast that with Jesus, who condemned violence and advocated forgiveness. In John chapter 8,
now contrast that with Yahweh, who multiple times called his followers to go out and kill people, unbelievers, very much like very much like the Muslims. Let me see here. I think Christians, even a couple hundred years ago, were very similar to modern day Muslims.
When a woman caught in adultery was brought to him for stoning, he said, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her."
Fucking cocksucker.
Instead of condemning her, he offered her grace, embodying compassion over punishment. Now, Muslim apologists might claim that such measures were specific to a particular security threat or wartime condition and were not a general practice. However, that's not how the text reads. You see, Jesus exemplified compassion and mercy, often.
Whoa, but that's not how the text reads, huh? Coming from a Christian? I've seen the kind of mental gymnastics y'all invent to make text mean something, okay? I've seen it. So let's not go there, Christians. Easy on all that, Christians.
Forgiving those that society condemned. His choice to protect the women from punishment reflects his over redemption and grace rather than retribution. Number 4, he ordered the execution of 800 in boys. You see, to put it lightly, Muhammad ordered the separation of the body from the neck up.
I mean, I've already touched on some of this, but yeah, multiple genocides, multiple infanticides from Yahweh, who is Jesus. Okay. So, in every respect so far, Yahweh Jesus is way worse than Muhammad. Yahweh Jesus makes Muhammad look like a little Boy Scout. As far as the murdering and raping and killing and coveting.
Of approximately 800 Jewish men and boys from the Banu Qurayza tribe. As recorded in Abu Dawood 4390, it says the Prophet had all the men of Banu Qurayza killed and
the slaughtering of the Canaanites. I mean, come on. All the different examples, multiple genocides. That makes that 800 number pale in comparison. Let's try like 8 million or so. Yahweh kills about 8 million in the Bible. The devil might kill about 3 to 8 or so in the Bible. Just saying.
Divided. Now contrast that with Jesus, who never engaged in violence but preached peace and reconciliation.
Now contrast that with Yahweh, who said, "Vengeance is mine." Very intellectually dishonest here on this video on y'all's part, right here. And then you're gonna say, "Oh, well, Jesus is the new Yahweh. He changed." Oh, but I thought God was unchanging.
In Matthew chapter 5, he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Jesus taught, "Put your sword back in its place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword." Now, Muslim apologists might argue that this execution was in response to reason by the tribe during a time of war and was in line with the legal norms of the period. But that's completely opposite of what the Bible teaches, and specifically Jesus, who responded to opposition with forgiveness rather than retribution. The New Testament emphasizes forgiveness.
And let's not leave out the actions of Jesus's followers, okay? The Crusades, murdering millions. Okay, so you're sitting here talking about how unviolent Jesus himself was. Sure, according to the canon dogmas. Now, there are some Gnostic dogmas out there that show a bit of a more violent, darker side to Jesus Christ. But let's not forget the actions of Jesus's followers, okay, who have killed millions in his name. There is, conservatively, 100 million people killed in the names of Jesus, Yahweh, and Allah. And I would say out of the three, probably more have been killed in the name of Jesus.
Even in extreme circumstances, as seen when Jesus forgave his executioner, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Number 5. Muhammad ordered the execution of those who insulted him, as we see in Bukhari 56, 360.
What was it? Yahweh unleashed a whole bunch of bears to kill some children who were making fun of a prophet. Mm. Mm. Just one example on that front.
9, which recounts the killing of those who spoke against him. In Bukhari 4, it states, "Who will..."
Hi everyone, my name is Mike. I'm CEO and founder of Boomerang Me, white label loyalty platform for local businesses designed for agencies. And I want to invite you to our educational course, How to Start a Digital Marketing Agency and Scale from $0 to $10,000.
Then you go all fucked on me. Oh, you fucking cock.
On the enemy of Allah. A man responded, "I will." Now contrast
The fuck, man? Swear to fucking God. Fuck off. God damn, motherfucker.
in Bukhari 4, it states, "Who will rid me of Marwan, the enemy of Allah?" A man responded, "I will."
So fucking annoying, man. Shit. There we fucking go.
Now contrast that with Jesus, who instructed his followers to respond to insults with kindness. In Matthew chapter 5, he said, "But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also." Moreover, Jesus prayed for those who insulted and crucified him. Now, Muslim apologists might argue that this...
Well, many people have been killed. Oh, you fucking cocksucker, for real.
was in the historical and social context. Insults were viewed as challenges to authority and could incite unrest, so harsh measures were necessary to preserve order.
Many people have been killed for even saying the supposed holy name of Yahweh. Many people have been killed for saying Yahweh is not the one true creator, for saying anything against Yahweh, for kind of seeming like the exact same shit you're accusing the Muslims for. If Jesus is Yahweh, as y'all claim.
However, Jesus emphasized and modeled a new way of responding to insult and persecution through non-retaliation, which he exemplified during his crucifixion. You see, Jesus' teachings provide a model of divine patience and forgiveness rather than retribution. Number 6, the encouragement of jihad for reward in paradise. You see, Muhammad promoted jihad.
You guys know that the Muslims got the whole jihad notion from the Crusaders. The Christian Crusaders, right? are so fond of talking about the moral reprehensity of the jihad, yet they learned that very jihad from the Crusaders, who came over slaughtering them and caught them off guard trying to retake the Holy Land. And after a time or two of getting their ass kicked by the Crusaders, they're like, fuck that. We bowing up from the flow up. We training. We getting ready for yo asses. And shit, we'll just give it our own little word. We'll call it jihad. But okay, there's multiple aspects to the jihad. You got the jihad of the words, which is censorship, which Christianity also has. That they call it heresy and blasphemy and have all these words to justify their censorship. But the actual all-knowing one true creator does not fear criticism, does not fear knowledge, does not fear truth. So anything that does fear that tells you that is not the one true creator. Such as Yahweh, such as Allah, such as Jesus.
Stating in Muslim 46:45, one who is wounded in the way of Allah, his position will be raised in paradise by 100-fold. In contrast, Jesus emphasized humility and self-sacrifice rather than violence. He taught
humility, like all the world will bow the knee and wag the tongue, which I hear in comment section for Christian sites all the time. Humility like that. Humility like these words are the only valid words of divinity in all of creation, while simultaneously saying that your God is the creator of all things. See, the actual one true creator owns every word ever spoken. The actual one true creator owns every single name ever spoken. There is no name or word spoken that is separate from the actual one true creator.
Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus warned against seeking rewards through violence, focusing instead on a personal relationship with God. Now, Muslim apologists might contend that this form of jihad is spiritual and defensive, focused on protecting the Muslim community, rather than offensive warfare. However, Jesus never associated reward with violence, but rather with peacemaking and humility. Jesus' teachings on sacrifice and mercy stand in contrast to any form of coercive reward, as he preached that true greatness comes from serving others. Number 7.
No coercive reward. Whoa, back up the train right there. You have to accept Jesus Christ in order to forgive your sins. That's the only way. That's the only way to heaven. What are you talking about? No coercive reward. The whole Jesus construct is nothing but a coercive reward system.
Muhammad was never tortured, but tortured others. There were instances where Muhammad ordered tortures or harsh punishments against enemies or those.
This is how I make $950 a day. I power wash rich people's driveways.
Nah, this is how you can get rich yourself with AI dropshipping. Download the Sophia application from the shop.
Here we fucking
So
go,
betrayed him.
motherfucker.
Now contrast that with Jesus, who was willing to suffer
So
personally
fucking
and
annoying.
never impose suffering on others. Instead, he allowed himself to be tortured for the sake of others.
Oh, really? Now you're
In
playing
Isaiah
that shit on me?
53:5, it prophesied. It says, he was pierced for our transgressions. By his wounds, we are healed. Jesus endured suffering to redeem humanity, showing a stark contrast to punitive actions. Again, Muslim apologists will claim that these actions were part of a war protocol and necessary for justice at the time. However, Jesus' example of sacrificial love embodies a greater standard of justice and mercy, contrasting sharply with retributive actions. Jesus' willingness to suffer without inflicting pain on others underscores his message of love and redemption. Number 8. You see in Bukhari 4.
Well, that's the message a lot of his followers never got. I'll tell you that. If that was supposed to be a message, that was a message missed by a lot of his followers.
37, it details the instance where Muhammad instructed a slave to build a pulpit from which he preached. Now contrast that with Jesus, who taught that leadership means serving others rather than being served. In Mark chapter 10, Jesus explains, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus washed his disciples' feet as an example of humility and servanthood. Take a look at John chapter 13. Again, Muslim apologists will argue that using a slave for labor was customary in Muhammad's time and does not necessarily imply cruelty or exploitation. However, this is completely opposite to what Jesus provided us, a radical.
Are you fucking me right now? There's all kinds of verses in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, supporting slavery. I don't know the Bible. I'll front to back all the different fucked up little stories in there, because I just, my spider senses are going off. I know there's stories that I'm missing for extra evidence for the comparison of Jesus Yahweh versus Muhammad as far as morality goes. And all morality is relative. Anything that takes place in the mind is relative. All truth is relative. Yes, that's a sticky one. That's a sticky one. I get into that one for sure. The morality thing, yeah, but definitely the truth thing. People are like, what are you talking about? All truth is relative. I'm like, yeah, because they're like, okay, so if you drink this Drano right here, is that objectively true that that's bad for you? It's like, it's any objectivity that truth might have only comes from a subjective mind lending its consciousness to that objectivity. Okay, so any seemingly objective truth is only validated and empowered by a subjective mind and a subjective awareness that is giving its life energy to that perceived truth. Okay, or morality.
Example of servant leadership, treating all people, including the marginalized, with dignity and compassion. His life exemplifies leadership by example, showing that genuine authority.
Even the marginalized, like the gays and trans, I don't know. I don't think they feel that way. I don't think that the gays and trans feel like Christians are really worried about them, you know, in a good way.
Comes through service, not demands. Number 9. Muhammad stated that the greatest command.
And speaking of which, I am a trans supporter, but also I have noticed that there are trans out there that are transphobic against other trans. There are transgenders out there who are very transphobic against transracials. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. They like to sit there and gatekeep about, oh, I'm trans, but you're not allowed to be that trans. Oh, okay, but you're allowed to keep adding whatever numbers of a transgender to the count. That's cool. Well, that's cool. I'm cool with it, yo. But I think I'm more pro-trans than most of y'all are, because I believe in transracial. I believe in a trans career. I believe in trans species. I believe in transnumerics. There's all kinds of trans out there. We just opened up a whole new world of transism. But y'all want to sit there and say, oh, I'm allowed to be this kind of trans, but you're not allowed to be that kind of trans. And then you want to turn around and say, that I am, my transracial phobia is somehow hurting your transgenderism. I'm half black, I'm half brown, I'm half red, I'm half white. You call me Chief Dark Brownie Cracker, goddammit. 4 halves make a whole. That's the transnumericism of it. Continuing.
Are belief in Allah and jihad in his cause. In contrast, Jesus declared that the greatest commandments are to love your Lord your God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus emphasized love.
But then once again, Yahweh tells you to go out there and kill your neighbor if he doesn't capitulate to the broken theology of Abraham. So there's conflicting messaging going on there. That's almost like that's part of the plan. For every one message, you can find another verse that supports the complete antithesis of that message. That's weird, ain't it? That's almost like they try to cover the whole spectrum of possibility with a verse that can be arbitrarily used in one place for a thing, you know? Kind of seems like that. I'm a little bit of a fucktard, y'all. Sorry. Fucktard-ism going on here. And if you don't know what a fucktard is, that is someone who might seem like a normal mental activity person, but they identify with some kind of mental defect.
The foundation of all teachings, placing relationships and compassion at the core of his message. Now, some Muslim apologists might argue that in this context means striving to live a righteous life and is often misinterpreted. However, that's not what the text says. See, Jesus' teachings on love encapsulate a universal principle that transcends cultures and generations. His emphasis on love as the highest command reflects a commitment to peace, compassion.
Yeah, because that's the very first thing you learn about Jesus, right? Love. No, that's not the first thing you learn about Jesus. The first thing you must learn and accept about Jesus is what? Y'all know that he died for your sins. Sin and death is the very first thing you must. But somehow they try to twist that into love. No, it's not sin and death you're accepting. That's love. Oh, okay. Now I know what kind of love y'all roll with.
And empathy over any form of conflict. Number 10. Muhammad demanded bodyguards even in worship. In chapter 4 of the Quran, it references the need for armed protection even during prayer, especially when Muhammad and his followers felt threatened by enemies. In contrast, Jesus did not seek or allow armed protection. In Matthew chapter 26, he reminded his disciples of God's power, saying, "Do you think I cannot call on my Father?"
Well, apparently the fuck not when they strung your ass up, ho. I think maybe that might have something to do with what happened to you right there, buddy. Maybe you could have used a couple guards.
And he will not at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? You see, Jesus relied solely on...
But did he? Did he?
God's protection, even in dangerous situations. Again, Muslim apologists argue that the protection was necessary given the constant threat to Muhammad's life and the safety. But that's completely opposite to what Jesus demonstrated. Absolute faith in God's protection. He showed that true strength comes from faith and reliance on God, not on physical defenses or arms. Number 11. He married 13 wives and kept concubines.
How'd that work out for you, Jesus? Hanging up there on the cross? You know, there was a moment when he's like, well, maybe the legions of angels ain't coming for me.
You see, Muhammad had multiple wives, including captives taken in war. As stated in Sahih Bukhari.
I got no problem with that. The captive thing, no. No, but the multiple wife thing, yeah, got no problem with that. Two. Me personally, 2 is what I would want. 1 to sit on my face, 1 to sit on my dick. 2. That's just 2. Just 2.
And sanctioned in the Quran, which allowed him to marry beyond the 4-wife limit customary for other men. In contrast, Jesus advocated for monogamy and elevated the sanctity of marriage as a union between...
But yet, there was many times in the Bible where Yahweh approved of all kinds of polygamy. All kinds of polygamy. Yeah.
1 man and 1 woman. In Matthew chapter 19, Jesus quoted Genesis saying, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the 2 will become 1 flesh." He upheld the concept of marital fidelity and lifelong commitment between husband and wife. Now, apologists might argue that Muhammad's marriages were often political alliances or acts of mercy intended to support and provide for widows in his community. But that is a complete opposite of what Jesus' teachings emphasized. Monogamy was God's original design, reinforcing marriage as a sacred bond meant to reflect God's faithful love. This commitment to one partner sets a standard of self-sacrificial love.
Yet, Yahweh commanded his followers on occasions to go out and rape. Yes, right there in the Bible in black and white. Go out to the neighboring nations, kill the men, kill the animals, take the virgin women. That's rape. That Yahweh commanded. And not only that, Yahweh granting the virgin birth, which I do not fucking believe that, but granting it, that is still rape. He was not married to Mary. He was not. There was no ceremony marrying them. You did not hear, even in the Bible, of some kind of ceremony marrying them first. So she still had some kind of divine sexual interaction, which is sex out of wedlock.
Rather than viewing marriage as a means of political or social advantage. And number 12, he commanded his followers to show hardness to unbelievers. In chapter 9 of the Quran, it says, "O you who believe."
Because that's totally foreign to Christians, right? That's totally foreign to Christians, right? That is part of why I even come on here and speak out against the broken theology of Abraham. Because ever since I was a kid, I've been attacked by Christians. Way before I developed my own theology, way before I started thinking for myself, from the very first time I stepped foot in a church, I was attacked by Christians. I was raised pagan. I didn't go to church a whole lot. My mom was like, if you want to go to church with someone, that's fine. So one time I took someone up on an offer. I went to a big old Pentecostal church out in Topeka, Kansas. I was a little kid. 8 or something. They all start doing their crazy ass tongues shit. And I start laughing at them. I start laughing. It's hilarious. It's funny. And if you're going to be doing crazy shit like that out in public, you better have kind of criticism. So if you're going to do that kind of shit out in public, you better have the thick skin to take some kind of criticism. But no, they told me since I was laughing, I had the devil in me. That was my very first encounter in church. And I'm not saying all Christians are bad. I got Christians in my family. It's not the individuals I'm taking the issue with. It is the religion and the dogma itself. Now the individuals that come at me, if you come at me sideways, you're going to get came on sideways. You come at me with respect, I'll come back at you with respect. But I will respectfully disagree with the broken theology of Abraham every chance I get. Every chance I get. Every time it tries to stick itself right in my face and say, suck it, I'm going to bite that motherfucker off. I'm going to bite that motherfucker off.
That is the Muslims of the day. Fight those of the unbelievers, the Jews and the Christians, who are near to you, and let them find you in hardness. See, this directive encourages firmness and aggression towards non-believers. Now,
I'm going to need you to say that again slower and lick your lips, bitch. Let them find you in hardness and firmness.
contrast, Jesus taught his followers to show love toward everyone, including enemies. In Matthew chapter 5, he said, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." His message emphasized.
That's funny. Yahweh said, kill the unbelievers. Let's not forget, Yahweh is Jesus, right? The Christian Yahweh anyway, which is different from the Jewish Yahweh, who isn't Jesus, just as a reminder.
Kindness and compassion, even towards those who opposed or mistreated them. Again, Muslim apologists will argue that this hardness was necessary for them because they were under constant threat, promoting
It's always necessary to be hard.
unity and strength. The problem is, Jesus' approach of loving one's enemies is a timeless principle that fosters peace, reconciliation, and reflects God's love for all people.
And that's exactly what the Crusaders were doing when they came into the Middle East, murdering people on a murderous rampage. That's just like that picture right there, where they had their arms around each other and stuff, except for, on the other hand, what was a dagger cut in their throat, you know? But hey, yeah, peaceful as fuck Christians they are.
By advocating love in response to hostility, Jesus' teaching transcends situational ethics and exemplifies moral consistency. Well, there you have it. That's not everything that we could contrast.
Moral consistency, huh? How did those words come out of your mouth without choking on it? Moral consistency. Let's talk about the moral consistency of Yahweh breaking all of his own commandments. Oh, but now you have some kind of other argument as to why it's okay for Yahweh to break his commandments. Because they weren't for him, they were for us, right? I've heard that argument. But that's a different argument, though. You're talking about moral consistency, which goes back to the perfect creator, which Yahweh is not. A perfect creator would not break his own commandments and then turn around and demand others to follow them. would not.
That's between Muhammad and Jesus, but that's 12 significant things that Muhammad did that are completely opposite of what Jesus did and taught. But the choice is yours.
Now, if I sat down and put the proper time into getting all the verses I could make this into an hour video or longer, you know, and I'd probably sound a lot more professional and shit, but that's just shit off the top of my head, and I'm not super familiar with every little thing in the Bible, so I know as we're going. That's just with kind of like a scratch the surface knowledge I have of the Bible. That's just the stuff I was able to come up with to combat these points right here. Okay. Dane Darklight, stepping in Dane's world. Thanks for rolling with me, y'all. Appreciate it. Darklight Theology. Y'all have a good one. Stay sexy, motherfuckers.